This past weekend at UFC 294, Khamzat Chimaev was fraud-checked by Kamaru Usman. In the co-main event of the evening, the two men fought in a 3-round bout in which it ended in a majority decision win for Khamzat Chimaev. Now, I personally think that was a disgraceful decision. Unless you are literally the biggest Khamzat sack rider in existence, you have to realize that rounds 2 and rounds 3 were Usman rounds. He won both those rounds 10-9. And Khamzat, who had a full fight camp, gassed out way before Usman did, who was literally coming off the couch on a week and a half's notice. In fact, it didn't even look like Usman gassed out. In my opinion, he didn't even look like gassed out in the end of the third. He could have went at fourth and a fifth. He didn't even look like he was gassed, whereas Khamzat was gassed out in like 5 minutes, which is really alarming in terms of his cardio, especially if you're going to talk about him fighting in a 5-rounder against Strickland anytime soon. Usman showed why he's a former 5-time champ, showcased his world-class boxing, his distance management, his fight IQ, like I said he would. And yeah, I mean, the first round was definitely a 10-8 for Chimaev. It was a clear dominant round. But other than that, Khamzat didn't really look that impressive, in my opinion. I want to bring up one point, that is Khamzat tanks after round 1. Similar to the Gilbert Burns fight, and as I mentioned in my breakdowns video, Khamzat started the fight, balls to the wall, pedal to the metal, like he always does, and he was hunting for that finish, that sub, that TKO, but he wasn't able to find it, because Usman is not some chump like Li Jingliang or Reese McKee. You know what I mean? You're not going to go out there and finish Usman in 2 minutes. Like, I'm sorry, unless you catch him cold. I'm sorry, you're not going to. And as a result, he used up most of his cardio for the first round, and he had to fight the next 2 rounds pretty much on cruise control, so he didn't gas out, literally completely gas out and get finished. If this fight had been 5 rounds, I believe that Usman would have finished him. And this is going to be a big problem for Chimaev. Like I said, if he's going up and fighting Strickland for that belt in a 5-round fight, Strickland's going to put it on him too. Strickland puts the pace on guys too. It's not like he just stands there, gets beat up. He's going to walk you down like he did to Izzy. So it'll be interesting to see. I think the main reason that Usman lost this one is because he fought at a 5-round pace. I think he made the mistake of fighting this fight as if it was a 5-rounder. He lost the first round very badly, 10-8 round, but then he rallied in the second and the third and won both those rounds, 10-8 in my book. And he did clearly win the rounds. I thought they were pretty clear for Usman, personally, but he didn't go for it as much as, he probably should have in terms of, looking for that finish and really trying to put a stamp on the round like Chimaev did in the first round. He really put a stamp on it, like, this is my round. I'm either going to finish this guy or I'm going to get, an ass whooping of a round, like not a close round at all. And yeah, the second and the third were close, but Usman still won them in my eyes. And I think a reason for this is because he was so used to fighting 5-rounders. The last 3-rounder he had was before he fought Woodley, which was like 5 years ago. And I think he was used to kind of fighting that pace and kind of conserving a little bit of energy for that 4th and that 5th, which are so important in a title fight. Really important, probably more important in the 3rd and the 2nd and the 1st if it gets there. And yeah, as a result of this, he lost the first round 10-8, but he won the second 2, and this fight should have been scored a draw. I think it should have been a majority draw. I think Usman won rounds 2 and 3, and Khamzat got a 10-8 in round 1, which makes it a draw, in my opinion, but it wasn't, and Chimaev got the hometown decision. And another thing I have to bring up is that Chimaev apparently got injured. He was talking to the media after the fight and said something like he broke his wrist or something in the first round, which would partly explain his drop-off in rounds 2 and 3, but in my opinion, the main difference between the rounds was his cardio, which wouldn't really be affected by a wrist injury. And I'm not claiming that Khamzat made excuses. Or that the wrist injury didn't affect his performance at all. I'm just saying that the biggest noticeable difference in Khamzat's performance between the rounds that explains the drop-off was the cardio. He just didn't have that same cardio that he did in the first round. It's simple as that. It's pretty cut and dry. So what's next for Khamzat, It's pretty clear. Dana White said that, I think he said in the week leading up to the fight, he said how this fight would be a middleweight title eliminator, meaning that the winner would face Sean Strickland for the middleweight title. And Sean has previously lost to Usman, but Khamzat, like Usman, is not ranked at middleweight. So it's a bit of a weird one. But yeah, Khamzat will probably be fighting Sean next, even though he's injured. So we could see another layoff for him, an extended layoff, like he hadn't fought in over a year since this fight. And as for how that fight would play out, Khamzat's cardio would definitely be an issue in that fight, but his wrestling and pace would definitely pose issues for Strickland. I'm not going to sit here and lie. But Strickland definitely does have things that could pose Khamzat some issues as well, like his boxing and his pressure, and his cardio, things that Khamzat doesn't really have cardio for days. He kind of gasses out after the first. But yeah, definitely be an interesting fight. It'd be a test for both guys. And if Strickland was to pull it off, he would have a pretty impressive resume at a middleweight, and he'll be one of the top pound for pound fighters, I think, after beating Izzy and beating Khamzat. That would be pretty impressive. What's next for Usman? Usman called out Dricus, who personally I think Dricus should be fighting for the belt, not Khamzat, especially since Khamzat is injured. Like if Khamzat's injured, is sitting out, and Dricus is healthy, because I know Dricus is like injured too now, whatever, but I'm sure he's better now or is getting close to better now. But if Khamzat's injured, sitting out, and Dricus is healthy and Sean is healthy, and the UFC is like, no, Khamzat's fighting for the belt, I think that's a bit of a robbery. I mean, Dricus is the clear contender at middleweight after doing what he did to Whitaker and getting him out of there within 2 rounds, making that fight not competitive at all. But anyways, if the UFC does give Khamzat the shot, I think that this is the fight to make, Dricus versus Usman, because it could serve as the co-main for UFC 300. Apparently McGregor is supposed to be the main event against Michael Chandler. Believe it if you want. I don't personally think I'll believe it when I fucking see it. But if that's the truth, then, logically, there cannot be a title fight because McGregor would have to be the main event, and then there would be not really any champion that's willing to be the co-main of a pay-per-view. It doesn't really happen. So they'd have to have some kind of non-title fight be the co-main, and this could definitely, fit the description. There's a lot of tension and a lot of hype behind this matchup. And while Usman and Dricus don't necessarily have beef personally, like Izzy and Dricus do, they could definitely develop some beef, because the beef between Dricus and Izzy is about being from Africa, and Usman and Izzy are from the same part of Africa, and Usman and Dricus have thrown some shots at each other before, while not having the crazy beef like when they were face-to-face, Izzy and Dricus, like some straight up, like these guys do not like each other. Dricus and Usman isn't that drastic, but still, these guys could have a big beef. They don't like each other. They already have some tension. If that fight happens, I would honestly favor Dricus. He's younger, much more faster than Usman on the feet, and he's no slouch on the mat. So Usman doesn't have that clear path to victory, which is grappling. He can't just take Dricus down and be completely safe. Dricus is a beast on the mat. And in my opinion, Dricus is overall more dangerous than Khamzat on the feet. Khamzat has that one-shot KO power. I know he does. But, in terms of actual, striking, Khamzat knocked out GM3. Dricus knocked out Whitaker, So, I think that Dricus and Usman banging it out on the feet would be fireworks. I honestly think that would be a really, really good fight. And I think Dricus is just a lot bigger than Usman. He's a lot shorter than Khamzat, but he's huge for middleweight. And in terms of how big he is, and Usman's big too, but I think the Dricus is going to dwarf him in terms of size and athleticism and speed. So yeah, I have to give that one to Dricus. Honestly, call me crazy, but yeah. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm going to be making another video this week on the Tyson Fury Francis Ngannou fight, since there is no UFC fight this weekend. And yeah, I'll make a video on that. I'll make a video on the Volkanovski Islam fight. But I'll see you guys in the next one. Hope you enjoyed it.